Of the lower third. My name is Molly Ruland. I am your host extraordinaire, and I am excited about our guest today. Life is really strange in this time of coronavirus, and in particular with marketing and strategy and knowing how to find your voice when it's appropriate to market, when it's not. And so I'm really excited to talk to Maxwell Nee today because he is the head of strategy and marketing for High Performing Coach. And so I want to, dig in, talk to him about his origin story, how he's marketing through this time, how they're succeeding, and what that looks like for him in hopes that maybe it'll help you and your business. So without further ado, please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Maxwell Nee to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you. I always love how polished and awesome your introductions sound, Molly. I feel really special to be a part of that.
Oh, thanks, man. Well, the honor is all mine. I promise you that. But thank you very much. How's your morning? How's your day?
Yeah, it's good. It's good. So, we had our morning meeting just then. So the business is really fresh in my mind right now. And, right now we are just in massive action. If anything, like the whole pandemic thing and the whole crisis thing has kicked us into even more action than what we were before because, we sort of identified that if we weren't going to triple down the action, we would half the result like very, very, very
Mm.
quickly. So that's been fun. So we've been go, go, go since right from the beginning and it has been paying off, which is awesome as well.
Nice. So tell me a little bit about your origin story and how you got into the business of business coaching.
Cool, cool. Yeah. So I walked into work one day because I used to work at a bank. I worked in like corporate banking. I worked there for about 5 years. I walked in the bank one day, looked at my boss, and he just looked so miserable. Like he's a tip. Like I know him to be a pretty miserable guy because he was my boss, but he would just look more miserable than usual. He was dealing with a lot of shit that day. Like that, we had a lot of compliance and stuff come through, and he just didn't look happy. And then I looked at him. I thought, man, I really don't want his job. And then I thought, and I said, okay, well, if I don't want his job, I don't want his boss's job or his boss's job, then what the hell am I doing here? Right. So then it sort of really clicked that plan A was to always have a business. And, this whole thing about, getting a career, going to university was actually plan B. So I
Mm.
was like unconsciously running plan B and built like this, this Roman Empire of a plan B, this really strong plan B foundation that I didn't actually want. And then I got sort of back in touch with what I wanted, which is to have my own business. And then by almost magic, I saw a Facebook ad. And the Facebook ad said, you can build your own like online digital marketing business. And I always had an interest in marketing, but I never went into it. And then I bought that program, and then just sort of haven't looked back since.
Right on. So how long have you been with High Performing Coach now?
Yeah, so I've been with High Performing Coach since the beginning. So the first iteration of the business was about 2 years ago, a bit less than 2 years ago. So it's a fairly new business, only about 1.5 years old.
Amazing.
And but I've always done marketing in a very similar way. It's just that this is like the 13th iteration of my niche journey, right? Yeah.
So in the beginning, you were marketing more towards gyms and people like that. Is that correct? And so, it sounds like you guys had a bit of a pivot, pre-pandemic, right? And into who your target market was. How quickly did that evolve for you?
Yeah, so I knew that it would be marketing something. I just didn't know how or what it would be really. So the first thing I thought, okay, well, I've got a real interest in fitness. Like I love fitness, so I jumped into fitness. We were marketing for gyms, and I realized that I just didn't like that because marketing costs to like a, a shop, like a storefront place, is an expense. It's more of an expense than an essential. So it was almost as if when you got your clients to a good place, then they would let you go because they had all this flow and you almost got punished for performing well. So you almost didn't want to get them that great a result, but you wanted to get them some results so that they wouldn't leave you. But then if you got them results that were too great, they would think, okay, well, I'm going to trim this expense. So I quickly learned that that wasn't for me because I didn't like that dynamic. I didn't like sort of being punished for doing great work. And then we moved more into what I realized was we needed our clients to buy into what we had to do. You know, they've got to buy in at a committed level where they had to take some responsibility, right? So we moved more into programs where people take full responsibility for the results, and we take full responsibility for how much we guide them and show them and support them and everything like that. So we moved more into the program space about 2 years ago, and then that's evolved about two or three times into high performing coach now.
That's amazing. I love that you say you take responsibility for the results. I love that. I mean, that's ideally what you want if you're going to hire a business coach, is somebody who's going to like be with you and like actually care about the end result and not just the sales pitch. So I love that. And it's really interesting because, we talk a lot about pivoting in this pandemic, and I kind of hate the word, to be honest. I'm more of a fan of adapt, even though I guess technically it's kind of the same thing. But I feel like as an entrepreneur, like we constantly have to adapt or pivot or whatever, right? And this is a perfect example. This is before the pandemic. This is just a natural um, ebb and flow of your business where you're like, we're not able to perform at our highest, results in this model. And so we're going to switch this method and change our audience. And I think that's such an important distinction because so many people feel, I feel like the old seasoned entrepreneurs, people who really want it, are like, well, that didn't work. We got to adapt this. We got to switch this a little bit, and we got to do something that does work. And that just feels very natural as an entrepreneur, right? Like nothing is guaranteed. Your market could change. A new competitor could show up. Like there's always some level of adaptation as a business owner. And so I love the idea that like it's okay to do that, right? Like even though you set out as, solely fitness, but then you realize that's not really where you can best serve your market, and you made that change. And I think that's an important distinction. Um, I feel like a lot of businesses get really hung up on the ego side of their idea, and they're really stuck onto that, and they feel like letting go of that and changing is somehow a sign of like failure or non-success or whatever you want to do. But I think as a good business owner, as a resilient business owner, you just say, well, that's not exactly it. Let's change the recipe slightly and kind of move forward. So I'm curious to know, like, are the marketing for the business, has it changed at all as well during this pandemic? Have you had to adapt like your marketing language? What does that look like?
Yeah, yeah. So I'll just say one thing about what you just said. So with the whole ego thing and changing your business, like I like to have your business run in the long term. What I've found and what I've learned is that you've got to be more committed to a business than you are to your ego. So
Mm,
like the ego it's like a speed bump. You're gonna trip over at some point. Might be after you make $1 million, might be before, but
right.
there's some point that'll limit you, right? So you have to be exactly what you said. Sort of be able to put that to the side and adapt like freely. So in our business specifically, we used to do live events. Right, we're still going to do them, but there's much less importance on them. So we moved our live events to online workshops, and we kept the price the same. And we were totally not sure about whether or not that would work or people would buy into that or whatever. And it turns out it works just as well, if not even better, because we've removed all this cost, removed all these logistics, and we've opened up our market. So what I really, really learned was that the pandemic and everything that happens in the pandemic never created new problems for people that they didn't already have,
Mm,
right? So I really believe that the pandemic, all it did was that it shined a light on the cracks that were already there.
mm-hmm.
And the difference was that you might not have had to deal with those cracks because they weren't as big yet or they weren't as revealed yet for like another year or two, but they were there.
They were
The
there.
bottleneck of us running live events was a crack, and then we
Mm-hmm.
had to deal with it sooner, as an
Mm-hmm.
example, right? So I really believe the pandemic can give you a lot. It can give you a lot if you let it give you a lot, because it gives you a lot of clarity. Like this is we've got to make this shift if we want things to work long term, right? We're going to make this shift if we want things to work long term.
Absolutely. Did you guys change your marketing at all? Because I know in the very beginning there was a lot of talk. I'm in a lot of like women's business groups and things like that, and there was a lot of talk about like change your marketing or make everything for free or don't market at all, and it's insensitive. And I even, where when the pandemic hit, was working on building online courses, and it was a program I was getting ready to roll out anyway. And so I was like, oh, this is great timing. People lost a lot of ability for income. So I put a post up on Instagram about like create a course from your home. Like we'll help you with it. We'll do it all in 30 days. And a nurse commented and said, how dare you market in this time? You assume people have $5,000 laying around, which, by the way, is an insanely low price to build an online course. It's like a third of my competitors. And she shamed me and she said, why don't you do something better with your time? Like, I'm a nurse, I'm saving lives. Why don't you volunteer? I mean, it was just so full of like literal, right? Like, she was so angry with me and it was crazy because it's like, I have employees. You know, I have a greater responsibility. I can't just go volunteer my time. And this woman was also getting paid to be a nurse if we really want to keep it 100, right? Like she wasn't volunteering her time either. And so, but what happened is a lot of commentary happened like that online with small businesses, and it really took the wind out of a lot of people's sails, and they just like backed up and they stopped marketing, and then a lot of people went out of business because of that, and then consequently people lost their jobs because of that, right? Like it's a chain reaction. Like I can't just not work. I have responsibilities. And so I kind of like backed off a little bit and then I came back, and then I'm just trying to be the change that I seek and provide like interesting conversations like this, right? But did you guys get any of that backlash, or did you just ignore it? Or how do you advise your clients in this manner, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we got exactly that. I got exactly that within one conversation with someone. And what I put it down to is there was what I believed in and what she believed in. And all that happened was that those two things they didn't align. If anything, they created friction, right?
Right.
At the points where they met. And it was the exact same conversation. The conversation was, do you think right now is the best time to be offering your services when they're so expensive, when people are trying to deal with this crisis? And then I went back to her and I said, I think because of the crisis, now is the best time for me to offer my services that I know helps people. Because that's what I believe in, right? So, and so I think that if you stick to your guns for what you believe in, then it doesn't matter what other people say because they're just expressing what they believe in. And they've got every right to express that, right? But what I wouldn't tolerate for myself is bending me around them or bending them around me. No one should have to bend around anyone. Not them to me or me to them. So that's my view.
And did you continue to get comments like that? Because I know it definitely subsided pretty quickly after the first month or so. But did you have so you guys just kind of doubled down on your marketing. You didn't really change it at all, huh?
Yeah. No, we just doubled down because we saw the more we saw people slow down, the more
Right.
we realized that we couldn't.
Right.
Because,
Because right,
yeah,
100%.
yeah. Because like I said, the pandemic revealed the cracks that were already there. And if the crack that's there is that it's people might think, okay, it's not I don't know, whatever the word is, ethical to
Right.
promote my business right now. Well, but that's gonna get old. If I'm gonna turn the tap off to how much I earn, which is how much I can eat and how much I can sleep, that's gonna get old very quickly. So we just sort of had that one little insight in mind that whatever people are going through right now is how they're processing it, and that's gonna get old very quickly because maybe what did it for me was I saw in March the stock market sort of crash in the US, right? And when I saw that, I realized that this thing wasn't going away anytime soon. As soon as I saw that, I knew that this is going to last at least 6 months. And people can't afford, and nor should they, to stop their only source of income for 6 months. Like no one can afford to do that. No one on the planet, right? Especially people who need help in the first place. So and then that created another belief that whoever's ready for us and whoever's serious about getting help, they will jump. They're going to be pushed forward more than they're going to be pushed back by this whole pandemic.
Yeah.
It's going to
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. So, um, speaking of marketing, how did you find yourself in this marketing world? If you went from finance, this is just something that was kind of natural to you that you really enjoyed, and how do you sharpen your sword? Like, have you? Do you do, marketing courses or I don't know, masterminds or anything like that? Or is this just like pure creativity, combined with, because I know your business partners are incredibly intelligent. So I know you have a great, mastermind within your own company. But how do you stay on top of everything?
Yeah, so it's what I would say that it's really easy to be an expert when you've only got like a small field, right? So we are super niche. So it's very easy for me to look smart because I only speak to one human being, you know, 95% of my day. I speak to that one type of human being, which is essentially a life or business or leadership or mindset or transformation coach, any sort of coach that does like really cool work. And so I'm just all over them. Like, I know how they eat, I know how they sleep, I know how they speak, and I just got to know them really, really well. So naturally, it's very easy for me to communicate with them and sharpen my sword in getting better at speaking to them rather than trying to get better at speaking to everyone. So that's how I've taken it on. How I sharpen my sword in general is I do what everyone else does. I absorb content. I dedicate a certain amount of time every week and every day to absorb content that is outside my world. Like that whole insight about the stock market crash. I didn't have that on my own. I was following someone else, and he's not in my world. My world is very very narrow. If I don't stick my head out to sort of absorb stuff out of my world, every now and then I can get lost. Just I could never have any new ideas for 3 months. Like I've done that before because I was just so focused, and because I didn't have any new fresh water sort of coming
Mm-hmm.
into the pot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. I've been reading a lot of books, doing a lot of Audible. I listen to books more so than I read, and I've been listening to Tim Ferriss's Tools of Titans, which is kind of like the follow-up book to the 4 Hour Work Week and the 4 Hour Body and the 4 Hour Chef and all of those things. He combined it into one, and I found that to be really helpful for sure. So what do you think is, next? I know personally you've just moved, right? You've moved from London to Barcelona. Has that been a difficult process for you in the middle of this pandemic, or was that just sort of a natural thing for you?
Yeah, I did have one speed bump. I had a speed bump at the airport in London because there's two lists of who can enter into Spain. There's a list of all the Europeans that can enter to Spain, and there's a list of the exceptions, all the countries that are on exceptions. And
Mm,
the guy at the airport only had the European list because there's not many other people that are non-European in Europe right now. Everyone's gone home.
right.
I'm on the exception list. So he said to me at the airport, look, you can't get on this plane until you get confirmation from the Spanish government that you're an exception to fly. And this is at like 4:30 in the morning.
Right.
I spent 2 hours traveling and packing, cleaning my rental, cleaning the toilet, just, all this stuff.
Yeah.
I was, I was not composed. I was not calm. So I just said, what are you talking about? Anyway, so what ended up happening was, I just bypassed him and went through the self check-in and got into Spain fine. So I knew it'd
What?
be
Yeah.
fine.
Note to self: self check-in is the way to skirt
Yeah.
immigration. That's crazy. Um, what a mess, man! What a mess. I can imagine. Moving in a pandemic was difficult in general. Just what a crazy time. I moved myself, so I know a little bit about that. So, what does your morning look like? What do you like? I've been going for long walks on the beach, which sounds super cheesy, but I live at the beach, and doing a lot of meditating to kind of quiet my mind and help me focus. What's your morning routine look like?
Yeah. So when I'm in routine, it's I wake up at like 6. In Australia, it used to be 5, but here it's a bit later. I wake up at like 6, meditate for like 20 minutes, and then just go straight to the gym. I
Mm,
found that if I don't go to the gym in the morning, I don't go, and then I spend the whole day feeling shitty and
hmm.
guilty that I didn't go. So I was like, it's gotten to the point where it's almost like survival. Like I have to go in the morning, otherwise, the trade off is just it's it's ruined my day basically. So that's what gets me to the gym, and then I come home, shower, eat, and get straight into it.
Yeah, I can relate to that. The days that I don't meditate or exercise are just not the best days for sure. I find myself, I find it really difficult to like think and just prioritize what I need to do first and everything else like that. It can be a little bit of a mess sometimes. So I'm a big fan myself. So what is, if you don't mind sharing a little bit, I know I was talking to Ryan, we're talking about how much the business has expanded, but it sounds like you guys have almost doubled or maybe even tripled your client base in the last couple months. Is that correct?
Yeah, pretty much tripled actually. It's been really good.
And do you credit that to like the marketing and the strategy that you've been doing? I mean, aside from obviously it's a good product, but what was that difference? Do you think that because the
Yeah, yeah,
business was doing well, right? But then the pandemic hit and you guys kind of doubled down and it worked. So what do you think that difference is in your client base?
yeah. So I think the difference is, like, let's say at any one point in time, there's like, I don't know, 10% of your market that's sort of looking, and they're looking, and it's very easy for them to get stuck in an analysis by paralysis. They're the sort of people that'll have three discovery calls with you before they ask you for the price, and then they'll ask you for the price and the brochure and the email and the contracts, right? Even though when they knew they were going to buy, like they just like 10% of the market are whatever you call them, information collectors. So it felt as if that all the information collectors in our market decided that they need to take action. So they
Interesting.
jumped in one boat or another. So they jumped. A lot of us, a lot of them, a lot of people that we were in communication with and sending value to just jump. Like they were just ready to jump. They all jumped. Or people that we spoke to were ready to jump and they jumped to someone else, which is great. So it felt like a lot of the market moved into action taking mode. So I definitely attribute part of it to that. And also, we were we were basically, how would I put it? I think for our business in particular, it was we were doing all this stuff that like putting out content, continuously like showing up, and it wasn't until that the pandemic hit and a lot of businesses sort of pulled back that we really started to stand out. And it's not just they pulled back, but we literally worked longer, harder, and put out like 5 times more content and free value and everything that we
Mm-hmm.
do, so much more. And we got wind that a lot of the big companies have stopped advertising on Facebook. So we stopped Facebook ads for a year because it wasn't really flowing. And then we
Mm.
jumped in, and everything's cheap right now. It's not as cheap as it was, but it's much cheaper right now. So we
Right.
we literally tripled down on everything, like we had nothing to lose. And that's probably the biggest distinction, right? Like we had nothing to lose because we did it, and we thought, okay, well, if Facebook ads and the internet's quiet right now, then that's cheaper to stand out in, which is what we did.
That's amazing. Yeah, I was trying to think of when you reached out to me. So, a little background. They do a YouTube like interview show, and so Maxwell had reached out to me about converting that into a podcast. And I think that was during the pandemic, if I'm not mistaken, right? When you first reached out to me. So, truth, proof is in the pudding, right? Like in a time when people are pulling back, you guys were not only creating new content, but repurposing your content to reach greater audiences. Do you think the podcast and that YouTube show that you guys do you think that's been helpful? Is that a big part of the content that you put out? Do you think that's been helpful in bringing in new business?
Yeah, absolutely. More and more we have people that come out and they say, I've been following you for a while. Now's the time. And I was following your YouTube, I was following this, or
Yeah,
whatever. That's how I know that a lot of like information collecting people switched into action mode, because they told us. Yeah.
for sure. I mean, I love how you guys do it because I think like, I think there's just a lot of, everybody can market how they want, right? There's a lot of different schools of thought here and methods, and a lot of people are on, LinkedIn doing the selfie videos and like telling you how to live your life or run your business. And I don't know, it's just at some point you sort of like glaze over on that, right? Like whether it's not great production or whatever, it just feels a little disingenuous, right? We all have our own biases or whatever, like admittedly, I have a hard time taking business advice from a 24-year-old. You know what I mean? Like, I just do. And maybe I'm wrong for that, but like, it just doesn't speak to me. And so I kind of I'm kind of over the, selfie videos and the LinkedIn information with all this, change your life, do this to be productive. What I found a lot of value in your content is just the conversations, like, and even talking with Ryan Matthew, like, I like him. I like the way that he thinks. I like the way that he talks. I like the way that he talks to people. And so that was really beneficial for me as an outsider looking in to like really get a taste of how the business operates, how he speaks, instead of just as polished in front of a camera or not polished in front of a camera, which quite frankly, I think like bad audio and video does more harm to your business than good, unless the content is really compelling, right? And the content is compelling. So you can have Zoom quality audio or video on those YouTube channels, and it's okay because the information inside of that content is so valuable. And I think it makes people feel a little closer to the action and a little bit more comfortable with who you guys are as a company, right? You're not just this like landing page or click funnel, that you're real people, and it's not some polished video with like techno music behind it to like hype people up. It's just
Yeah.
super real. And so I love that you guys are using podcasting and like content like that in order to bring some business in, and also showing some love to the people that you're working with. I think it's really cool to hear how vulnerable people can be in some of those calls, and just really kind of, you know, chopping it up, man, and like having some real conversations, and it makes it feel more authentic and more obtainable, to work with a high performing coach. After speaking with Ryan, I was thinking about it, and I'm not even a coach, not officially. I like to tell people what to do, but I don't think that's the same thing. But yeah, I've been really impressed with what you guys have been doing there. So I'm excited to be a part of that journey, and hopefully work with a bunch of your clients as well. But for anybody listening, podcasting can improve your business, just to be clear. So what is next for you and the company? Do you have a, 18-month, 3-year plan? Are you looking to expand? Actually, where is most of your audience? Is it a worldwide client base?
Yeah, it's super worldwide. Um, most of them is in Canada and the UK.
Okay.
So much in Northern Hemisphere, some in Asia, and we serve a lot in Australia, but not really. And so what's next for us is something we've been sort of looking at, and we're sort of looking at it more seriously and more seriously. And that's to open our own coaching school, just so
Hmm.
we can cover this and deliver like the whole thing. If someone's starting from zero and they really want to make this thing real, then we can take care of them from zero. Because right now we don't have that. So that'll be fun. Like I'm really looking forward to pulling the trigger on that.
Yeah, I would love to be involved because that's what I do too, is build online courses, and I just
Yeah.
love the process of laying out all that information and putting it on a Trello board. I'm like addicted to creating Trello boards, so low key. So, that's not really a shock there. But I think that would be great because I think there's a lot of opportunity there. Like, I've kind of been an unofficial coach. A lot of people come to me, I mentor some people, and I'm just sharing my experiences and what worked for me and what didn't. But I think there's real value in that, having accountability and just having somebody to talk to, I think is really important, especially during this time. So I'd be curious to see, how you guys roll that out and what that looks like. And so, speaking of like your global audience, I can't help but wonder, like, how do you target your ads? Like, do you do different
Yeah.
ads for different markets? Like, do you use different, like, content for different, I mean, because like Asia is totally different than the UK, which is totally different than Australia, which is different than Canada. Are you creating different marketing assets for that, or is it?
No, they're more or less the same. We do find like certain images and certain like copy works different, like say in the UK compared to North America, like just
Right.
very, very, very subtle differences, but it's more or less the same. We probably could squeeze like another 10-15% efficiency out of it, but it's working and not fussed about that.
It's interesting. Well, because you're really targeting a type of person, so it almost doesn't matter where they live, right? It's the mentality and the mindset of that person who's a coach,
Yeah.
who wants to really level up. Interesting. Well, I really appreciate you taking time to chat with me today. I'm really fascinated by high performing coach and all the work that you guys are doing, all the people that you're helping, and so I'm excited to be a little part of that journey in any way that I can be. And I definitely look to all of you, in the company as thought leaders. I think you're doing really great work. So I really appreciate the time that you have taken to spend with me this morning and talk about the business. We have all the links below for your events and the website and everything else. And Heartcast Media and High Performing Coach are also doing like a podcast program for their clients. So if you are a member of the High Performing Coach business world, then you get to work with Heartcast Media. So that's an awesome thing. Yeah, well, I won't keep any more of your time this morning, but I really appreciate it, Maxwell. If there any advice that you would give to somebody who's in marketing and strategy right now, based on what you've learned in the last 5 months of this pandemic?
Yeah, what I would say is, whoever your target audience is, more or less, they will have the same problem that they had before the pandemic. If anything, it might just be magnified. And depending on who your target audience is, they might have some new problems, or they
Mm-hmm.
might have some new ways to talk about new problems. So, you know, the game is the first. You don't really have to be even that good at marketing. You just have to be better at finding what people are dealing with and finding that early, because people really feel that you get them because you've done that homework to find that out about them sooner than the next guy or girl. Then they will appreciate that. And I speak from experience because whenever I see someone offer me something that no one else is, and it's just so thoughtful,
Mm-hmm.
they hold a special place in my business heart.
I love it. I love it. I think that's great advice. I think that's really, really solid advice. Like you said, the problems were already there. They're just magnified. And it can either crumble that business or it can strengthen them, right? I don't want to mispronounce it, but I think I'm not even going to try. But in Japan, when like a vase or something is cracked and they fill it with gold, and so now it's repaired and has this gold filament inside the cracks, and now it actually makes that thing more valuable because it's withstood the cracks, it's withstood the damage, and now it's filled with this beauty, and it's even stronger than before. Instead of just like getting a new thing and kind of embracing that, and so I think that it's kind of relevant here, right? You can either, those cracks can either grow to be chasms and they can collapse your business, or you can really dial in on them and fill them with better stuff and be stronger for the next iteration of whatever life is going to throw at us next. Hurricanes, locusts,
Yeah,
we're here for it. We're ready.
yeah, cool.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, Maxwell. Always a pleasure talking to you. And for you listening, I hope you found this information valuable or interesting. Maybe it inspired something in your business, maybe how you might want to market, maybe fire up some Facebook ads, whatever it might be. But, don't stay still, don't stay stagnant. Don't listen to that one mean nurse on Instagram. She doesn't have to worry about your employees. And thank you for taking time to spend with me. If you found this content to be valuable, interesting, funny, helpful, whatever, the greatest compliment that you can give both Maxwell and I is to share this on LinkedIn and tag both of us in it so we can continue the conversation. And if you are a coach and you are looking for some coaching for your coaching business, I can't recommend High Performing Coach enough. They are doing solid work and they are good people. So thank you again. We'll see you again real soon.